5.
Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. President Reagan signed a new job training bill today with much fanfare and taking much of the credit for the bill. Then Mr. Reagan prepared to go nationwide tonight with what he calls a nonpartisan speech on the economy. With elections close, Bill Plant reports that Democrats are furious over Mr. Reagan's claims about both the bill and tonight's speech.
Following more than a week of internal White House debate over how to get the most political mileage from the job training bill, Mr. Reagan's advisors invited 20 trainees from similar local programs. As the president met with them in the cabinet room, he was asked about charges that he had endorsed the bill reluctantly and only for political gain.
That is campaign talk, and they know it. It isn't true.
True or not, the charges keep coming. The administration says it developed the bill early this year and attached it to one sponsored by Senators Dan Quayle and Edward Kennedy, ironing out major differences along the way. Not so, says a spokesman for Indiana Republican Quayle. The administration threw hurdles in our way all spring and summer. Today, Mr. Reagan signed the bill, which could cost almost $4 billion. He was surrounded by the young trainees, but the bill's congressional sponsors were absent. The White House said they were out of town. The Job Training Act provides training only, no placement, for up to 1 million people a year in private sector jobs. Allows state governors and local industry to decide how to spend the training money, but requires 70 cents of every dollar to be spent on training.
This is not another make-work, dead-end bureaucratic boondoggle. This program will train more than 1 million Americans every year in skills they can market where they live. It'll make a difference on Main Street.
Tonight, Mr. Reagan goes on nationwide television to talk about the economy, despite charges of partisanship from the opposition. Following long, drawn-out negotiations, CBS, NBC, and CNN will carry the speech live at 7:30 Eastern Time. ABC has decided not to carry it. The Democrats have requested equal time.
The White House itself says there'll be nothing new tonight, so we assume it will be a partisan statement on behalf of his failed policies.
Mr. Reagan will say tonight that the nation's economic problems are bigger than any one party, that the question isn't who to blame, but what. Using video graphics, he'll attempt to show that unemployment is the result of inflation, and that only a slow, steady course can reverse it. The tone is conciliatory and nonpartisan, but the message, as advisors admit, is designed to reinforce the Republicans' fall campaign theme, give the guy a chance. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
In keeping with its policy, CBS News will broadcast a reply to the president's speech, Voices of Opposition, at a later time. In Alaska today, the Interior Department heard the bidding on what it believes to be the largest offshore oil and gas reserves found in more than a decade. Some offering bids today call it the crown jewel of the offshore leasing program. And Gary Shepard reports some were willing to bid a king's ransom.
The amount of the bid is $71,793,250. I'll read that again.
It turned out to be one of the biggest offshore oil lease auctions in U.S. history. Over $2 billion worth of leases sold to the highest bidders today at a gathering in Anchorage, Alaska, attended by executives from nearly all the nation's major oil companies.
The amount of the bid is $148,871,130. Should I read that one again?
What the industry gets for its money is the right to drill for oil and natural gas in an area known as the Diaper Field, nearly 2 million acres off Alaska's northernmost coastline, not far from Prudhoe Bay, which was discovered in 1968. The Interior Department, after drilling test wells, estimates the Diaper Field discovery may hold as much as 4.7 billion barrels of oil, 1.8 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Federal experts say the chances of hitting pay dirt are better than 99%. What has the oil industry doubly excited is that most of the Diaper Field leases lie within 40 miles of the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline, built to bring in the Prudhoe Bay oil. So getting the new oil to market will be relatively cheap and easy.
This is the first large frontier sale that the Reagan administration has had. It's indicative of what we are doing on the Outer Continental Shelf and the prospects we have for meeting America's energy needs.
Because of the harsh conditions, experts estimate it will be 6 to 7 years before the first oil from the Diaper Field is on its way south. Gary Shepard, CBS News, Los Angeles.
like this Remington microscreen rechargeable shaver so much, I bought the company. It shaves as close as a blade, or I'll give you your money back. The first microscreen is so thin it shaves incredibly close. The second even closer. And Remington's American-made. It costs less. Norelco's imported. It costs much more. The Remington microscreen rechargeable shaver shaves as close as a blade, or your money back. Now a double gift for Christmas. Free travel case with a Remington microscreen shaver.
When I smoke cigars at home, my friends never object, because I've got a Polynex Pure Air 99 smoke grabber 6-stage filter with activated charcoal. It removes smoke, pollen, and dust, everything but your relatives. Smoke goes in here, clean air comes out here. And its extra-large filter takes out 99% of ragweed pollen. These are my friends. They're crazy about my Pure Air 99 from Polynex. Right, girls?
For the second straight day, Israeli and Syrian troops clashed in eastern Lebanon. Today's battle lasted only about 15 minutes, as opposed to yesterday's 4-hour fight. And in 2 villages southeast of Beirut, other fighting, Lebanese Christian and Muslim militiamen exchanged artillery, rocket, and mortar fire. The brunt of this battle was borne by members of the Druze Islamic sect. United Nations observers caught in the middle reported the shelling, then took cover. Israeli troops patrolling the area also took cover, but did nothing to stop the fighting. The violent anti-government demonstrations that for the past 2 days have plagued the Polish port of Gdansk today spread to the country's south, to Wrocław, a stronghold of the now outlawed Solidarity Union, and to the Krakow and Nowa Huta area. A steel-making center is Nowa Huta. From Poland, Bert Quint reports.
In Krakow, more than 1,000 steel mill workers tried to march to a nearby church. Polish television showed these pictures and said the demonstrators attacked police, and the police were forced to repel them with water cannons and tear gas. In Wrocław, police used armored cars and water cannons when a crowd gathered where youths were trying to place flowers at Solidarity's old local headquarters. Gdansk was quiet. Police appeared to be in firm control here. They were wary, checking the documents of people on the streets, detaining some of them. At the Lenin shipyards, the Solidarity banners, the defiant posters, and the chanting workers were gone from the gates. Last night's threat by the regime to court-martial strikers forced them back to work, but as some laborers said, to work only when the supervisors are looking. One worker said, "How can you do anything when they put a pistol to your head?" Another said, "This doesn't mean it's over for Solidarity. Something may happen this month, maybe next." Bert Quint, CBS News, Warsaw.
The 1982 Nobel Peace Prize was awarded today to 2 self-described anti-nuclear activists, Alva Myrdal of Sweden and Alfonso Garcia Robles of Mexico. The 80-year-old Myrdal is the wife of Gunnar Myrdal, who won the Nobel Economics Prize in 1974. She is an author, sociologist, and former diplomat. The 71-year-old Garcia Robles, a former foreign minister of Mexico, heads his country's delegation at the UN disarmament talks in Geneva. The two will split a cash award of $157,000. The recent devaluation of the Swedish krona cost them about $25,000 each in prize money.
Too many people today think that made in America means factories that are falling apart, technology that's dead. But today at Chrysler, made in America means cars built in some of the most advanced front-wheel drive plants in the world with the latest computer technology. It means Chrysler engineering I'll stack up against anybody. And it means front-wheel drive leadership, because we've introduced new front-wheel drive cars for 5 years in a row. This year, we're introducing our largest front-wheel drive cars with room for 5, 6, or even 7 passengers. The Chrysler E-Class, high mileage with luxury. The Dodge 600 ES, the American sports sedan designed to compete with Audi, BMW, even Mercedes, but at a price Americans can afford. One more thing made in America means today: enough confidence in our quality to back every car we build for 5 years or 50,000 miles. GM, Ford, Datsun, Toyota don't do that. And they certainly owe it to you. But until they do, if you can find a better car, buy it.
A task force of more than 100 local, state, and federal investigators is looking into 7 deaths linked to poisoned extra-strength Tylenol capsules. They are checking what one official called a myriad of leads. Ned Potter traces 2 of those leads.
Chicago police arrested this man, 48-year-old Roger Arnold, and called him a closet chemist. They'd been tipped that he worked at the supermarket warehouse from which some of the poisoned Tylenol might have come, and that he'd had batches of cyanide in his home. but in the end they could only hold him on some firearms charges.
We don't have any hard evidence that he would be connected with the Tylenol killer.
Investigators also said they are seeking these people, Robert and Nancy Richardson, the likely authors of the $1 million extortion letter that Tylenol's makers received last week.
It says, gentlemen, as you can see, it is easy to place cyanide into capsules sitting on store shelves.
Illinois Attorney General Tyrone Fainer read reporters the letter, but again he had to emphasize that this was not a lead to the real killer.
We have substantial leads that we are following through on, but I stress that no arrests are imminent.
Fainer said there is also no connection to the case of the tainted eye drops in Colorado or to a poison death last summer in Wyoming. In fact, every lead that has been made public so far has washed out. Ned Potter, CBS News, Chicago.
Recent declines in short-term interest rates mean good news for everyone from the White House to the house on the corner. But Meredith Vieira reports some find those rates still too steep to build the American dream on.
Nothing makes a real estate agent happier than a prospective buyer. But actual sales are a rarity in the Chicago housing market, and agents can only hope that the decline in interest rates will turn things around.
We still haven't killed the American dream. People still want to buy a home.
And they are beginning to react, Walters says, but better times are not just around the corner. John Gordon should know he himself is a real estate agent, and he hasn't been able to find an affordable home after 9 months of looking. With another baby on the way, Gordon and his wife need space, but space like this costs $137,000.
It all depends on your monthly payments. If interest rates continue to come down, then you will be able to afford a larger house.
It sounds good until Gordon figures in the cost of living.
If you add $300 a month to that for maintenance, taxes, and utilities, talking about $1,200 a month. I don't think that's a monthly expense that the average American family can afford.
Like many couples, the Gordons have another problem, selling the house they already own. Despite falling interest rates, no one's biting, they say. Gordon believes people are waiting to see if the trend continues. This family is afraid to wait.
It's better to try and work something out now and stretch, if we can, than to try and wait and find out that perhaps we've missed the boat.
For the Gordons, the American dream has become a compromise. If they're lucky, they will sell their old home at a loss so they can afford to buy something less than they'd hoped for. Meredith Vieira, CBS News, Chicago.
Things are looking up for the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, better known as the A&P. After a series of losses, the giant grocery now reports an operating profit for the first half of the year. Part of the turnaround is attributed to the closing of 400 stores. Today, Andrea Naverson reports one of those stores reopened in the Philadelphia area under startlingly new management.
Rosemary Akobasi had been punching up prices for 21 years until she lost her job with A&P. The ailing company shut down 39 stores in the Delaware Valley last spring, putting 1,600 people out of work. Today, Mrs. Akobasi is back behind the cash register, but this time she isn't working for the company, she's working for herself.
Every sale is my sale, really my sale. You know, it's mine.
Today was the grand opening, not of the old A&P, but the new O&O, what's believed to be the first employee-owned and operated supermarket in the country.
God bless America.
25 unemployed workers, most from A&P, put down $5,000 apiece and got a bank loan to reopen the store.
Personally, I had to borrow from the union, credit union.
Do you have your whole life savings invested in this
I sure do. Yes, I do. But we're going to make it work.
I see all these people on unemployment, and they're saying, write to your congressman, do this and do that. That's not the answer. You've got to take matters into your own hands.
A second store like this one, owned and operated by employees, is scheduled to open by Thanksgiving. But workers here hope the idea will spread far beyond Philadelphia and start a trend that one way to protect your job is to buy the store. Andrea Naverson, CBS News, Philadelphia.
The Great Stampede of 1982 continued its romp on Wall Street today. Trading was the second heaviest in stock exchange history. After yesterday's dip, the Dow Jones Industrial Average took off again today, fueled by news that more banks were lowering their prime lending rate. In his commentary tonight, Bill Moyers finds the stock market is like another great American gamble.
Anyone paid to think out loud about the passing scene is being asked two questions these days. How will the election in November affect the country, and what's the stock market going to do? I confess that I don't know. In at least one respect, politics and economics are alike. Rarely are the choices precise or the consequences predictable. At best, you make an informed guess. At worst, you roll the intuitive dice and cross your fingers. Consider these examples in politics. In 1964, people voted for peace and got war. In 1968, they voted for law and order, only to have the White House emptied by indictments. In 1976, they voted for competence in government, and 4 years later perceived so much inefficiency that they threw the incumbents out. Even those generalizations are inadequate, because each of the elections I just cited was determined by more than simply war and peace, crime and punishment, efficiency, or ineptitude. But they illustrate how vulnerable are our assumptions. Economics also plays havoc with the best laid plans, just like politics does. Anybody knows what I mean who bought energy stocks a year ago, anticipating a shortage of oil and gas between then and now. So does what's happening on Wall Street these days portend good things to come? It didn't in 1929, when a soaring stock market excited just about everybody's optimism shortly before the whole structure came tumbling down. But that was another time. Who really knows today? I am not, because of such hazards, advocating abstinence from politics or investments, although I treasure the advice of an elder who warned me once against putting in the stock market money that belongs at the food market, or placing in the Fourth Ward faith that rightly belongs in the precincts of an invisible order. No, I love politics because it is so full of surprises, and watching the market from the gallery on a busy day makes me all the more admiring that in its rough way it works at all. But whether it's a race for Congress or the run of bulls on Wall Street, human nature is at play in its manifold unpredictability. This is what leaves commentators in the posture of so often standing corrected.
We compare before we buy. We compared portable kerosene heaters and bought Corona. We found real quality in Corona, like tight, durable construction and simple, smooth controls.
And only Corona has the power step burner that makes one heater work like two. Turn it down for a small room, up for a large room.
Compare Corona before you buy.
You won't be satisfied with anything less.
Cozy up to Corona. Stay warm and safe.
Perfect landing, Ann.
Congratulations.
My first solo flight.
Oh, you did great. Come on, let's have some coffee.
Only half a cup.
Oh, I thought you liked fresh brewed coffee.
I love it. It's the caffeine.
Look.
Brim decaffeinated coffee? If it tastes this rich, fill it to the rim.
With Brim.
Fill your cup to the rim with the richness of Brim.
Britain's Prince Andrew arrived home in London today alone, and as the British news service Reuters put it, looking suntanned but a little tense. The 22-year-old prince cut short a much-publicized Caribbean vacation with Kathleen Stark. She's a 25-year-old American-born former soft porn movie actress whose stage name is Koo. Andrew's mother, the Queen, reportedly was not amused by all this. The International Olympic Committee today said it will restore the amateur status of the late Jim Thorpe. It will give to his family the Olympic medals it took away because he played a little semi-pro baseball under his own name. Bernard Goldberg looked at the Jim Thorpe legend and found it was no myth.
Jim Thorpe was a superstar before media hype made the word a cliche.
I think he was the greatest athlete that ever lived. Any sport, no matter what it was, he could do.
Abel Kiviat was Jim Thorpe's teammate at the 1912 Olympics, where Thorpe won 2 gold medals, prompting Sweden's King Gustav to tell him, "You, sir, are the greatest athlete in the world," to which Thorpe politely replied, "Thanks, King." But Jim Thorpe did not get to keep those gold medals. Because it came out that he had played some semi-pro baseball before the Olympics, Olympic officials said he was not a legitimate amateur, and they took the medals away. But what Jim Thorpe was an Indian, which many people said was the real reason his name and his accomplishments were erased from Olympic record books. Until today.
I've talked over the years with just
thousands and thousands of people around the country who all are of the same mind that there was an injustice and it should be corrected. So this is a victory also for the American public, and I'd like to think of it in that way.
I am elated that I'm getting the medals, myself. They will be donated to the United States Olympic Hall of Fame.
Jim Thorpe was a football great, a member of the College and Professional Halls of Fame, a Major League Baseball player. And now, after 70 years, the International Olympic Committee is acknowledging something his friends have always known, that Jim Thorpe was also an Olympic champion. Bernard Goldberg, CBS News, New York.
Isn't that Florida orange juice?
Orange is smart for drinking orange juice, for that clean and sunny taste. Hey, orange is smart for drinking orange juice, pure refreshment any place. Hey, orange is smart for drinking to your body's content, the taste that only nature could invent.
100% pure from Florida.
Hey, Skipper, orange is smart.
Wang announces the most important step in managing information since the computer, WangNet. WangNet is the electronic connection that gives anyone in your office any kind of information they need instantly by linking together every conceivable kind of office equipment, no matter who makes it. WangNet links you to floors below or satellites above, using just half its capacity, leaving room, of course, for Wang's next breakthrough in office automation.
I've always been a fighter, and there's no point in letting something like a headache get in your way even for a few hours. Not when you can do something about it. What many people do is take Anacin. I met with Anacin's research scientists. They told me how, very simply, Anacin helps block pain, just stops it, so you can forget about it. Anacin and maximum strength Anacin. Fight headache pain and win.
A call today for a moratorium on social service budget cuts. A call by local officials who see the needy on the local level firsthand to offer a helping hand. They say their survey of 55 cities has found the same sad facts in all of them. A growing number of new poor, people who have lost their jobs, exhausted their benefits and bank accounts, and they are terribly embarrassed about asking for a handout. But in these hard times, even asking is no guarantee you will receive. Bruce Morton tonight explores the American way of giving and taking, from above and below the social safety net.
The View from Washington. Together, we've begun to mobilize the private sector, not to duplicate wasteful and discredited government programs, but to bring thousands of Americans into a volunteer effort to help solve many of America's social problems. The View from St. Augustine's Roman Catholic Church on Cleveland's west side.
This would be the lowest amount we've received in the last 5-year period from the donors who supply us.
Washington.
People are willing to give more than ever before. Even in this recession, they're giving more.
Cleveland.
We depend very, very much on generous people, but many of them are auto workers, they're steel workers, they're iron workers. Some of them have come to us in need, and these are our donors before. And I also see the eligibility requirements for the poor reaching such of a level that some poor do not receive adequate amount of money, some receive nothing, and that adds to their need from the government.
Can the private sector make up for the social services President Reagan has cut? CBS News surveyed a dozen charities. Most said contributions were up. The United Way, 10%, for instance. But they said demand for services was up even more. United Way, 30 to 50%. Charities providing services to people, free food, health care, were hit worse than research-oriented charities like the American Cancer Society. An Urban Institute study says federal support for nonprofit agencies will drop $33 billion between fiscal 1982 and 85. Other federal spending in those same areas will drop $115 billion more. To close that gap, private giving would have to increase by 90 to 100% a year, 8 times faster than it has ever grown before.
Instead of asking the taxpayer from Cincinnati to pay for something in Cleveland, why not encourage the people in Cleveland to take care of their own?
At St. Augustine's, they are trying. They give away free food.
I applied for it and I was $1 over, so I couldn't get food stamps.
You couldn't get food stamps, okay. I have to ask you, would you ever go anywhere else for help before?
No.
Okay.
I'm too proud to go anywhere.
And then,
But the shelves are not full. Despite a city food bank, there is not enough food, not enough money to buy it. They run out a lot.
It's the parishioners that put the money into the church. And if the parishioners don't have it, how are they supposed to give it back to us?
The Teener family, he's an out-of-work trucker, say they can't make it on their food stamp allowance. The church can sometimes offer groceries, but who will pay to turn the gas heat back on with winter near?
My biggest loss is the medical. Now I really have to make sure my child's really, really ill, which is bad to say, you know, but I have to because I can't afford it.
Joanne Fontanez quit welfare and went to work cleaning offices. She was still getting some cash and medical care for her 4 kids, but the rules changed, and last February she lost those. She has thought about going back to welfare.
I feel better as a person knowing I have a job, and my children, I don't know, they talk with their friends and, oh, my mommy works, you know, and I don't want to see them have to put their heads back down and say, my mommy doesn't work anymore. It's rough. All I was asking for is a little bit of help, at least medical. But so far, nobody's answered me.
We have shown you some of the people at this church. Many others did not want their pictures taken because they are ashamed of what these times have made them do.
Of course there's a bit of a crunch if they've been depending on federal dollars and now those are going to be cut back. They're going to have to either cut program or find new resources.
I believe that the hurt's going to rise, and I think we're facing a difficulty we do not know how to handle. I see people going without heat, without proper utilities. I see people going without food. I see us being able to give them just a little bit of food, where maybe cereal might be the meal that evening, or something like that, in a very cold house.
The days are getting colder.
For CBS News, Dan Rather, good night.
Stack up a lively sandwich. Cheese adds a slice of life. Pep up a livelier party. Cheese adds a slice of life. And a slice of flavor, a chunk of fun, a sprinkle of sunshine for everyone. Just add the cheese, it's sure to please, 'cause cheese adds a slice of life.
The lonely repairman is what they call me, 'cause hardly anyone ever calls me. I'm so lonely, 'cause Maytag washers are built to last longer and save you money with fewer repairs. They're so darn dependable. Nothing seems to break except my lonely heart.
Not all Maytag repairmen are this lonely, but we're trying. Maytag, we also make a great dishwasher.
This is CBS.
Police want new charges of murder against a woman now accused of child abuse. And tonight, the campaign trail takes us to the 4th District for one of the most closely watched races in the country. Those stories and a lot more coming up next on Eyewitness News.
Recently, in blind taste tests held in malls across the nation, Diet Cola drinkers tested the 3 leading Diet Colas. Diet Pepsi didn't win. Tab didn't win. Diet Right Cola did win. In fact, more people